Thank you for joining us today for part 2 of our 2-part series on minding the basics.
You know, in the trauma work that I've done with folks, we do here in Florida, we encounter a lot of hurricanes, as the Gulf Coast and the Eastern Seaboard will experience. But one of the things we talk about, or I talk about when preparing for hurricanes, is the fact that the act of preparing, the act of planning, can help alleviate a lot of anxiety and worry about this thing we can't control,
Right.
the hurricane. And it's not only good for adults, but also good for children, the young people in our lives.
Right.
They even have less control and may be experiencing some feelings they don't even understand. But here's a way to gain some control over an uncontrollable situation, and that is preparing and having your own little kit and things like that. So having a routine to go, for your money, for your food, and getting out there and exercising on a regular basis can be very helpful.
Yeah.
But then there's also the sleep.
Oh, that's the hardest one.
That's the hardest one of all, right? Because I'm a go kind of person, and sleep can be telling on a number of levels. If you're and it's based on your pattern. Okay, so if you've got something you're worried about, and if you're going through college, you're a student, there's anxiety there for tests and, the assignments you've got to get completed. So there's that worry. And as an adult, you've got work kind of obligations. You've got, other relationship kind of obligations and things like that. Sleep is a really good indicator of where that anxiety is. Because if you're overly worried about something, you don't sleep very well. For a lot of people.
Right.
There's the opposite of those folks that are trying to avoid certain things. They will want to sleep more. So take a look at your sleep pattern. Do you have a regular sleep routine? I love my wife dearly. She has a wonderful sleep routine, and she also has a routine for waking up. I'm not a routine kind of guy when it comes to that. So I admire her for her fortitude with her plan, her routine that she maintains, and she gets herself ready for sleep, and her body knows that, okay, we're coming into sleep mode, and things kind of wind down. I'm hit or miss. If I'm being honest, I'm hit or miss. I mean, there are days where I'm go, and then all of a sudden I'll crash, and out I go. And then there are other times that the mind is taking its time winding down.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you'll hear a lot from sleep experts is, especially nowadays, the world of technology that we live in, that lovely little screen time. Got to be careful with that and be mindful of that. If you're parents of children that get into the screen time, you should really monitor how much screen time they have, because that does disrupt one's sleep routine. And many devices now have a parental control on the amount of time your little ones will watch. And it doesn't even have to be for the little ones. We can set it for ourselves and set up a reminder, okay, I need to slow this down now, or I need to stop at a particular time, so that the mind can really start to process and shut off and prepare itself for bedtime, for sleep.
Well, and I think that's why it's so important. We've talked in other episodes about vicarious trauma, and as clinicians, or even just as people, having that margin in your day to process out your day. Because if we go, and there's no margin by the time we go to bed, well, that's when you've stopped for the first time all day, and that's when it all hits you.
Right.
And what we don't want, as people, for that to be our decompression time, because that will eat into your sleep, right? Because then it's, well, I could have done this. I should have said that. What if I had done this? Would this have been different? And now you're wrestling all of those scenarios alone because everyone else is asleep.
Right.
But also, what are you going to do? You're stuck now, and you can't turn off your brain. And so one of the things that I've really had to focus on, and we've talked about this before, is being intentional about carving out time in your day, having that garbage can of trauma like you've mentioned and dumping it out. before you go home, because whatever you have, on your shoulders is going to go home with you if you don't set it down. And what we don't want, if you're so go, 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 if the first time you stop is at night, well, that's absolutely going to impact the quality of your sleep.
Right. So I can hear a lot of people out there going, well, I got schoolwork, I got tests coming up, and I got to study. And yep, you're correct. You do. If you plan out some time to say, I am going to study for X number of hours in your time, plan it. Being a little bit more mindful of what you're doing can help alleviate a lot of stress and anxiety. And, I one of the things I love to do is read.
Yeah.
So, and I read a lot, but it doesn't take a lot of time. And I had watched a YouTube video, again, YouTube video of this gentleman who calculated out, look, we have breaking down your day into half-hour increments and taking a look at your time. And so if you only read for a half hour a day, you would be surprised at how many books you could read. And what he did is he's calculated for this person, okay, this is your reading rate, and if you read for a half hour every day, you could, and this person could get through War and Peace, they could get through Anna Karenina, so and The Count of Monte Cristo, and for you in the literature world, you know how daunting some of those books are because they're very long. But and then he has like 3 other books that people could get through just by reading for a half hour every day.
Right.
And it's like, wow. And then, of course, you've got all that experience and knowledge that you get out of the reading. Yeah. So when you look at that and think about your time management and look at things in half-hour increments and look at your studies and what you have to read and do, if you did it in those small chunks that aren't as overwhelming and as daunting of a task and break it down simply, you actually get a lot more in. And it was kind of amazing because what this person figured out in their reading style was that, well, they would only get about 50 books or so in the rest of their lifetime, and they calculated it out, and it almost tripled the amount of books you could read just by reading for a half hour a day. So I was like, wow, I know I read half hour a day at least on various things. And variety is also the spice of life. So if you're the type of person that says, I have to read this book cover to cover, and that's the only book I can read, they encourage you to kind of break it up a little bit and read 2 or 3 books at a time and stuff like that. So when you're in college, you are doing that kind of practice because you are reading for this subject and then you're reading for the next subject and for yet a third subject as you're studying. So getting that routine again is pretty important.
Well, and I think life is just like the art of multitasking, right?
Exactly.
And the things that you're juggling are going to vary from time to time. Maybe a job, maybe children, maybe friendships, relationships, but it's multitasking and figuring out where am I going to put my energy, where am I going to put my priority, and how do I shift my energy as it's needed? Because like you've said, several times, it's good to have the plan. It's good to have the structure. It's also good to have the understanding that that plan's going to change. And that doesn't mean you failed. That means that your energy is needed over here. Right. One of the things that we focus on working with children and families is that we encourage parents and caregivers to communicate a plan to their kids and say, I start my day, every morning with my kids. Okay, guys, let's talk about our day. Let's talk about what we're going to do. So what am I doing? I'm setting expectations. I'm setting a sense of structure because, kids are people. Right. And people need a sense of safety and a sense of security. And I know that I feel better if I think I know what's coming next. Now, what comes next may change, but I feel better when I have a sense of all right, I know what's ahead of me. There's a sense of security, a sense of safety, a sense of peace that comes from that. Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel like, okay, I think I can handle what's next. And, kids need that. And so what I have found is that even when the plan changes, they are resilient to that change because there's still a sense of structure and routine and stability with that. And what has happened just over the course of time is that If there's no plan and no communication and then something changes, that's when you see really big reactions because it's like, well, this is coming out of left field. Well, it's not because I knew the whole time what we were going to do, but you didn't.
Right.
And so I think, having kind of that mindset with college students and even like young adults of the plan's going to change. It will because there's factors outside of your control. But come up with some sense of framework. Every day, I set my calendar. My day has never in the history of my life gone exactly according to my calendar, but it gives me a sense of structure. And the other thing, which you may laugh at this, and it's okay if you do, what really helps my brain, because some days, you could feel like, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm going to get through all of this. And the goals ahead of you feel so daunting and so overwhelming that it's like that paralysis that sits in of like, well, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
So I'm just going to not because then I can't mess it up. And I just can't right now. And so that can be really overwhelming. And then if someone does have a sense of, anxiety or depression or anything that might affect, a fear of, accomplishing the task at hand, it can really be debilitating. And so one of the things that I've learned to do that I need is I will make a list. And even if I know all the things that I need to do, I'll put it in list form so that I can cross it off. And even if it's something that I just did, I put it on the list and then I cross it off. I'm like, yes, one thing done. And me having that visual of, okay, look what I've accomplished, but also I'm putting it on paper. I'm making it tangible. It's not just a million things floating in my head, which sounds like such a simple thing. But Kirk, that is a game changer for me.
It is, and the science bears that out because I remember studying in organizational psychology in my undergrad years. That very thing, creating a list and crossing that item off, was such a stress reliever for executives. I mean, this was in an organization. They had a consultant come in and they observed all these things. Basically, what the consultant said is, your executives need to create a list and then cross things off. Changed the environment, the stress level. So, a simple little list.
And you know what's so funny is that the amount of things didn't change.
Right.
The things themselves didn't change, but my perspective of the challenge changed. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, all of these things that I've got to do versus, okay, here's my challenge. I'm going to get it done because it's on my list and I have to cross the things off on my list.
Right.
And so my perception of the situation changed, and that changed everything.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw out a caution flag on that too, because some people can make a list and they get a little obsessive about the list itself.
Right.
And if they don't get to those items, because there will be days you don't get to something on that list.
Right.
I live in the world of crisis work, so I make a list, and sometimes I get to everything, and sometimes I don't get to anything.
Right.
Or maybe just a few. So the list is there to be that structure, to be that organization of, okay, what do I do next? Well, there it is. Let me do that. And then crossing it off.
Yeah.
It's such a nice thing. One of the things that I got into, and I'm proud to share this, that for years I've been trying to really get into journaling because we use it as a tool in therapy. And I know it can be a nice way to empty that emotional trash can that I talk about. But I always struggled myself with journaling. So, and here I am giving advice, try journaling and it'll help.
And that you're not doing it yourself.
Well, I struggled with it because I would start and then not really continue that momentum with it. Well, I made a much more conscious effort a little over a year ago to journal. And it didn't have to be anything deep and heavy duty. Oh, I'm just reflecting on life. No, there's just some of it is a little to-do list. Some of it is a bit of my calendar for the day kind of thing. And some of it is reflection and thought and such for that moment in time. And so I made a conscious effort and learned a little bit of something called bullet journaling. There's many YouTube videos out there, and there's a process. And of course, there's some that get really creative, and it's a creative outlet for some folks, which is great. And they have all nice little pictures and drawings around their journal, and I'm like, that's not going to happen. It's time consuming. But the really essence of doing that kind of journaling was really what attracted me to it. So I stuck to it. Some of it was the learning process for me as well, and being excited about that.
Oh, I've seen you do it. Is
Yes.
that where you write the lines in your journal?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's getting a little bit away from the tech world, which for me it's a little more grounding, and we'll probably
Right.
talk about grounding in the future
Sure.
YouTube podcast. But for me, it's a little bit of grounding for the day. It's a bit helps me focus a little bit, and then I create kind of a plan for what I hope to accomplish that day. Again, I don't know always, but you just take those items and you move them to the next day, and you get to them. And then you eventually look at that list and say, was that really a priority?
Yeah.
And it kind of helps you readjust some
Well, and I
prioritization.
think that like having that grace of like, what is my best? And like your best is going to change depending on the day, depending on the stressors of that day, right? The quality of your best is going to be different. But having that grace of, did I do my best today? Or did I do what I could do today? And that needs to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that so many times we'll have that grace for other people when they come to us and they say, look, like, I'm doing all that I can do. And then my response is always, okay, let's see what I can do
Right.
to help support you. Do we extend that same grace to ourselves, or do we immediately go to, gosh, you're failing, of course you messed this up. Like, you're never going to get this done. And so I think having that positive self-talk is really needed because you can only do so much. And like you said, maybe you'll get to the things on your list. Maybe those things will slide over till tomorrow. No problem. But like, what will get done will get done. One of the things that I have found for my own self-care is that what you need is going to be different than what someone else's needs. Kirk and I have a friend that loves to garden, and she is incredible at it, right? Makes beautiful things. I'm like, that seems fun. That brings her a lot of joy. Perhaps I should try such things. And so I get all these plants, and I have the best intention. Like, I need the world to know. I really do. And then the part of my brain that says, what are these plants? It does not work. And so I've even gone as far as setting a calendar reminder on my computer, and I snooze it because I get busy doing other things. And so that does not bring me joy. Like, I love the idea of plants. I love when I'm surrounded by plants. I love having plants in my office. It does not bring me joy to take care of them. But what I have found that is so therapeutic, which may seem so strange, is I love doing yard work, right? So I don't really care about keeping them alive. And I don't even really care about planting them. But I really enjoy, just this past weekend, we were like trimming our, some things in our yard and pulling things out. And I don't know all the words because I don't know about plants, but it was so cathartic doing yard work and seeing something that's so overgrown, right? And then having a very clear before and after, and I can see what I have accomplished. And I
Right.
think so much of what we do during the day, there's not this immediate gratification of like, okay, I've seen the results of the effort that I've put into this, because some things take time.
Right.
And some things are abstract. But for me, for my self-care, it's so helpful to do something where I see the immediate, fruits of my labor. Whereas, like, I feel like with planting things, like, it takes too long.
Right.
And I don't mind, sowing the seeds and doing the things in, like, regular work. But for my self-care, like, what brings you joy? And everybody's got something different that brings them joy. And I think it's important, and you owe it to yourself to keep trying things. And I know you've mentioned in prior podcasts, within reason, say yes. Try something. Go to a hobby club. Go to a sports event. Try that activity on campus. Maybe it's the worst, and maybe you never have to go again.
Right.
But maybe you'll meet someone there that will become your best friend, and it will change the course of your life because you gave it a shot, because you said yes. And I can tell you, when I came to college, I knew one person, and she is still a good friend, but my best friend I just was randomly placed with. She randomly was assigned to my room, and we have been in each other's weddings. We have been there for each other during, raising children, and, one of the best friends of my life. And if I hadn't have said yes to a particular opportunity, I would have missed out on that experience. And I think so many times we have this fear that holds us back, right? And we don't say yes. And I'm not saying say yes to everything. Some things should be a definite no.
Right.
But some things just, gosh, like this is your chance to figure out who are you and what do you need to have joy. And so what a great time, college, especially early adulthood, to figure out, who are you?
Yeah, when I was teaching sociology at one of the colleges, that was something I would tell students is be curious. Mm-hmm. This is your time to be curious about things and try different things. College years is the opportunity to, yes, break out on your own, but it's also an exciting time for exploration and taking a few risks that, I'm not really sure about going around that corner. Well, go around that corner a little bit and see if it works for you and fits for you. So,
and some of the risks are going to be silly, and some of them are going to be life-changing. I know one of the things that I realized that I loved was I love traveling. I went on some mission trips with my school, and I had never really done, a lot of that before. And it was so exciting. And it was so exciting to realize, okay, well, this is going to be the cost of the trip, and it seems overwhelming. You break it up into little things, and you start working towards it. Like what you've said before, I think all of the categories that we've talked about, the underlying theme is moderation and planning and taking a lofty goal and breaking it down into bite-sized steps that are doable, right? That can be achieved. But if you look at it big picture, it can seem incredibly overwhelming.
Right. Absolutely. So, and even we're talking about reducing anxiety, reducing stress, but even the planning process is going to be anxiety producing and stressful because you're trying something new for the first time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's your plan. It's not something you're going to necessarily share with everybody in the world. It's for you. It's for you. And make it as flexible and open as possible for you. And again, you have permission to give yourself forgiveness because you're not always going to hit everything spot on every day. There'll be days where, you hit everything and you've got room for more, or you don't have room for any of it. So,
well, and I think that's where those coping skills come into play of with disappointment, with excitement, with good days and bad days. How do I regulate? How do I maintain my balance in a world filled with chaos, right? When you can't always regulate the reaction of the people around you, and sometimes the reactions are not healthy.
Exactly.
But how can I regulate myself? And there's not one answer. There's, a million different answers. But I think the key is figuring out who you are, figuring out what do you need to feel safe. What do you need to feel anchored? What do you need to feel heard and healthy and validated? And that might change depending on what season you're in. But being willing to ask yourself those questions, because I know a lot of times growing up, how can you ask questions that you don't know to ask?
Right.
And maybe, you've never been in a situation where you have this many stressors, right, all at once. And so being willing, like Kirk said, to give yourself forgiveness, to be new at something and to try and to really figure out what are my coping skills. And maybe the answer is nothing. And so if that's the case, saying, okay, well, now I've got my goal. My goal is to figure out when I'm feeling frustrated, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, what anchors me? Is it journaling? Is it taking a walk? Is it a lot of different things? And being intentional about practicing those skills, because the more you practice them, the more they're going to feel second nature. And sometimes you'll even think, well, man, my reaction wasn't so big. And that's because you are using coping skills and not even realizing that you're using coping skills.
Right. Exactly. So these are some things to, minding the basics, just keep, I think the big takeaway is being mindful of it, having some sense of a plan. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of it's on sticky notes.
A lot of it's on sticky notes. And like part of that minding the basics, that mindfulness is that self-monitoring, right? We've said many times your body, your mind, they're all connected. Physical health and mental health merge in a million different ways. And so when you are feeling frustrated, take a minute and assess, well, how's my body feeling, right? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling tingly? Am I feeling tired? And really being responsive to what you need, because you're going to know more than anyone else how something's affecting you, and just being aware and realizing that your feelings are valid, and instead of pushing them down and compressing them and ignoring them, acknowledging them and giving yourself what you need to feel healthy.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on our minding all of these things. Now, as always, if you are local to the Polk Highlands and Hardy area at any time, if you would like to reach out for emotional support, or if you feel that you or someone you know is in crisis, you can always reach out to the Peace River Center Crisis Hotline. It's 863-519-3744. Maybe you live outside of our area. Maybe you live somewhere within the United States and our line is not convenient for you. You can call the National Suicide Hotline number at 988. As always, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed our show, and if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. That'll help us out tremendously. If you or someone you know is struggling with any issues, feel free to give us a call here in Central Florida at 863-519-3744. Or if you're listening to us in other areas, you can dial the national number, which is 988.